The grocery store buzzed with the familiar sounds of everyday life. Shopping carts rolled over the tiled floors. Cash registers beeped rhythmically, and soft conversations blended with the gentle hum of the overhead lights. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee, a city rich in history and culture. Beneath its vibrant atmosphere filled with music and delicious food, Nashville carried the weight of many stories, tales of struggle and triumph that echoed through its streets and into the lives of its residents. In the produce section, near a display of ripe apples and oranges, stood Linda Jacobs. At 76, Linda was a lifelong resident of Nashville, having witnessed the city transform over the years. Her gray hair was neatly styled, and she wore a floral cardigan that hinted at her nurturing nature. However, today, her demeanor was anything but gentle. She fumbled with a bag of apples, her movements quick and impatient, muttering under her breath, as if the world had conspired to inconvenience her. Among the shoppers that day was none other than Jason Thompson, a well-known figure in the music industry. He wasn't in Nashville for a concert or a promotional event. He had come simply to connect with the people who inspired his work. Jason had always taken pride in remaining approachable, and that meant enjoying the little moments, like wandering through a local grocery store. Dressed casually in a black hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, he pushed his cart down the aisles while checking his phone for messages. Jason was initially unaware of her presence as he reached for a bag of oranges, his attention absorbed in a conversation with a friend about dinner plans. But Linda was immediately struck by his appearance. Her gaze lingered longer than it should have, her lips forming a tight line of disapproval. Adjusting her glasses, she scrutinized him. His confident stance, the charisma that seemed to fill the space around him, this undeniable aura of someone who belonged wherever he went. Yet in her mind, he did not belong in this store or in her world. "You don't belong here," Linda said suddenly, her voice slicing through the muted chatter of the aisle. Jason paused, his hand hovering just above the oranges. Confusion washed over him as he turned slowly, wondering if she was addressing someone else. But as she spoke again, her tone more forceful, he realized that she was, indeed, talking to him. Jason stood still, gripping the handle of his cart a little tighter. He was no stranger to moments like this. Prejudice had followed him throughout his life, manifesting in various forms, from subtle jabs to outright hostility. Yet each time it hit him like a gut punch, a stark reminder of the distance still to be traveled. "Why don't you go back to where you came from?" she snapped, her words dripping with disdain. The atmosphere in the aisle shifted, thick with tension. A nearby mother with her child glanced nervously at Jason before quickly leading her little one away. A stock clerk, who had been stacking bananas, froze mid-motion, unsure of how to respond. At the checkout, a cashier leaned in, trying to catch a glimpse of the unfolding drama, her fingers poised nervously over the register keys. Taking a deep breath, Jason exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He glanced around, noting the onlookers who were now fully engaged, their curiosity piqued by the confrontation. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, but he refused to let it break him. Instead, he put his phone away and faced Linda directly. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm yet firm. He spoke with a quiet authority, demanding attention without raising his voice. "Do you understand what you just said?" Linda held her ground, her small frame radiating defiance. She adjusted her cardigan and lifted her chin, as if challenging him to respond. The confidence in her words stemmed not from righteousness, but from a lifetime of viewing the world through a narrow lens. Jason blinked slowly, his expression unreadable. Years of navigating such moments had taught him that the best responses were often the most measured. He allowed a pause to linger in the air, letting her words hang heavy around them as the crowd leaned in, captivated by the unfolding exchange. "I said what I meant," she replied sharply. This is my country, not yours. Linda's eyes narrowed, her arms crossing defiantly over her chest. This rewritten section maintains the essence and style of the original, while incorporating new character names and subtle adjustments to the narrative. Taking a steadying breath, Jason decided to respond with calmness instead of anger. He understood that shouting back would only fuel the fire, and he was determined not to let that happen. "Ma'am," he began, his voice steady, "I think you might be mistaken. I belong here just as much as anyone else." The tension in the grocery aisle thickened as Jason faced Linda, her harsh words still echoing in the air. For a moment he felt a surge of emotions, confusion, anger, and a familiar sense of disappointment. He had spent years navigating the complexities of fame and prejudice, always striving to rise above the negativity. Yet here he was, confronted by a stranger who seemed to embody all the ignorance he had hoped to leave behind. As Jason spoke, he noticed more shoppers turning their attention to the exchange. Some appeared uneasy, exchanging glances as they listened to the unfolding confrontation. A young man in a baseball cap leaned against a nearby display, his eyes wide with curiosity. A woman with a shopping cart full of groceries stood frozen, her mouth slightly agape, as if she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Linda's expression hardened, but Jason continued, refusing to back down. "I grew up in a neighborhood not far from here. My parents worked hard to provide for our family, and I was taught to respect everyone, no matter their background. This country is built on the contributions of many, and that includes people like me." Linda's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment it seemed as though she was struggling to find a response. Jason took this opportunity to elaborate, hoping to reach her on a deeper level. "My ancestors faced unimaginable hardships when they were brought to this land. They endured, fought for their dignity, and built a life for future generations. I stand here today because of their strength." The crowd shifted slightly, drawn in by the gravity of Jason's words. A man in a plaid shirt, who had been quietly observing from a distance, nodded slowly, seemingly moved by the conversation. Jason noticed him, feeling a sense of solidarity in the moment. It was as if the atmosphere was shifting, and the weight of history hung over them all. Linda shifted uncomfortably, her earlier bravado beginning to waver. Jason continued, "My grandfather served in the military, fighting for the freedoms we all enjoy. He did so with the hope that one day we could overcome the divisions that plague us. But we can only do that if we engage in honest conversations, like the one we're having now." The tension in the aisle began to dissipate as people started to show their support. A young woman, perhaps in her 20s, stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're right. We all deserve to be treated with respect." Others began to murmur their agreement, encouraged by the shift in the atmosphere. For the first time, Linda's facade of defiance seemed to crack. She looked down at her hands, gripping the bag of apples tightly, her knuckles turning white. The realization of what she had said began to settle in. The crowd watched in silence, their collective breath held, waiting for her next move. Linda, sensing the tide turning, opened her mouth to respond, but Jason wasn't finished yet. "I understand that change is difficult," he said gently, his tone softening. "But it's important to recognize that the world is evolving. We can either cling to outdated beliefs or embrace the richness that diversity brings to our lives." Jason took a step back, allowing the moment to hang in the air. He wasn't trying to intimidate her. He simply wanted her to reflect on the impact of her words. "I believe we can learn from one another, but that requires honesty and an open heart. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Jason nodded, sensing a shift in her perspective. Change takes time, and recognizing where we might be wrong is the first step. He glanced around at the onlookers, some nodding in agreement, others deep in thought. "If we want a better future, We must be willing to engage in these conversations, even when they are uncomfortable. The silence stretched, each person in the aisle feeling the weight of the moment. Finally, Linda spoke, her voice shaky but sincere. I didn't mean to cause such a stir. I don't know. It's hard to see things differently. At that moment, a middle-aged man with a friendly demeanor chimed in. My father always said that the only thing that matters is the heart. It shouldn't matter what color we are or where we come from. His words resonated with the crowd, adding to the momentum of understanding and empathy building in the aisle. Linda's expression softened further as she absorbed the words around her. She looked at Jason, her eyes reflecting a mix of regret and curiosity. I guess I've been stuck in my ways for too long. I want to do better. Jason smiled, sensing the sincerity in her voice. That's all anyone can do. We all stumble at times. What's important is that we learn and grow from those moments. As the conversation continued, a sense of unity began to form among the shoppers. The aisle that had once been filled with tension now buzzed with a renewed spirit of understanding and hope, bridging the gap between different perspectives. This section captures the essence of the original story while incorporating new character names, additional details about the surrounding people's reactions, and a focus on dialogue and connection. As the conversation deepened, Jason felt a sense of hope rising within him. The tension in the aisle was slowly being replaced by an atmosphere of dialogue and understanding. Linda, though still visibly shaken, appeared to be reconsidering her earlier stance. Jason could see the wheels turning in her mind as she absorbed the weight of his words. Look, he began again, wanting to ensure his message resonated clearly. This isn't just about me or my experiences. It's about recognizing the shared history we all have in this country. Many people have fought and sacrificed so much for the ideals we strive to uphold. That includes people of all backgrounds. Jason nodded, understanding the difficulty of breaking free from long-held beliefs. I get that, he replied, his tone empathetic. Many of us have been shaped by our upbringing and the experiences we've had, but change is possible. We just have to be willing to challenge those old narratives. Linda took a deep breath, her posture softening as she opened up. I guess I've always thought of things in a certain way, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Maybe it's because of how I was raised. I didn't mean to be hurtful, but it's just how I've always seen the world. The crowd remained attentive, their eyes shifting between Jason and Linda, eager to witness how this unfolding story would resolve. The young couple nearby exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. They leaned in slightly, intrigued by the unfolding drama. A man in his 60s who had been silently observing finally spoke up. My father fought in the Vietnam War, and he always told me that courage isn't just about facing an enemy. Sometimes it's about facing your own biases and admitting when you're wrong. His voice carried a weight of experience, adding depth to the conversation. Jason smiled, encouraged by her willingness to reflect. Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more inclusive society. We can either hold on to our prejudices or embrace the diversity that enriches our lives. The choice is ours. Linda nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I never thought about it like that, she said softly. I always believed I was just protecting my way of life, but I see now that it's more than that. It's about being part of a larger community. As the dialogue unfolded, the atmosphere shifted from one of confrontation to one of connection. The young woman, previously hesitant to speak, finally found her voice. I've seen so many people hurt by ignorance and hate, but moments like this give me hope, she said, her eyes shining with determination. We need to keep having these conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. Linda, who had been silent for a moment, looked at Jason with newfound respect. I can see how much you believe in this. It's inspiring, she said, her voice firming. I want to do better, not just for myself, but for my grandchildren too. They deserve to grow up in a world where kindness and acceptance are the norm. Jason nodded in agreement. That's right. It's crucial for all of us to engage in these discussions. Change doesn't happen overnight, but every small step counts. He glanced around the aisle, noticing more people beginning to nod and murmur their support. Jason felt a surge of gratitude at her words. That's the spirit. It's about breaking the cycle and paving the way for future generations. They need to know that they can dream big, no matter where they come from. As the crowd began to disperse, a sense of camaraderie lingered in the air. People exchanged glances and smiles. Their initial discomfort transformed into a collective understanding. Jason turned to Linda, his expression warm. Thank you for being open to this conversation. It takes courage to admit when we're wrong. Linda smiled back, a hint of relief washing over her features. Thank you for your patience and your willingness to share your story. I realize now that I have work to do, learning and unlearning. Just then, a woman from the back of the crowd stepped forward, her voice ringing with conviction. Let's make it a point to continue having these conversations. Not just here, but everywhere we go. We can't let fear silence us. Her words sparked a ripple of agreement among the onlookers, who nodded and murmured their support. Jason felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. This moment wasn't just about him or Linda. It was about everyone present. It was a reminder that each individual has the power to influence change, to inspire others, and to contribute to a more inclusive society. As the aisle returned to its usual bustle, Jason glanced at Linda one last time before heading toward the exit. He knew this encounter would stay with him, a testament to the importance of dialogue and understanding. As he walked away, he felt hopeful. The seeds of change had been planted, and he knew that this was just the beginning. This section elaborates on the dialogue between Jason and Linda, highlighting their evolving perspectives and the reactions of those around them, while maintaining the essence of the original narrative. Before stepping out of the store, he turned back to the crowd, raising his voice slightly. If you believe in the power of change, let's keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's inspire one another. Inside the store, the atmosphere was charged with a newfound energy. Shoppers were no longer merely passing through the aisles. They were engaging in discussions sparked by Jason and Linda's encounter. A small group had gathered near the checkout, their voices mingling in animated conversation about acceptance and understanding. As Jason stepped out of the grocery store, he felt a mix of relief and empowerment. The conversation had taken unexpected turns, revealing not just the prejudices that still lingered in society, but also the potential for change when individuals chose to engage openly. He glanced back at Linda, who was still standing near the produce section, her expression contemplative but softer than before. Did you see how she reacted? A young man said to his friend, excitement evident in his tone. It's amazing what can happen when someone challenges your perspective. It makes you think. His friend nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. Yeah, it's easy to hold on to beliefs when no one questions them. But seeing that change unfold right in front of us, it gives me hope. Meanwhile, Linda was still processing the exchange. She had never envisioned herself in a situation where she would feel compelled to rethink her beliefs so publicly. As she stood there, clutching her bag of apples, she felt a mix of vulnerability and strength. The eyes of the onlookers felt heavy upon her, but rather than feeling defensive, she felt an urge to engage with them, to explain her journey of understanding. Taking a deep breath, Linda turned to the nearest shopper, a woman in her 40s who had been quietly observing. I've been thinking about what I said earlier. It's not just about me. It's about the community we all share. I want to do better, but it's difficult to let go of old beliefs. The woman, whose name was Sarah, smiled warmly. It takes time, Linda. We've all been there in some way. The important thing is that you're open to change. That's the first step. Encouraged by Sarah's response, Linda continued. I've always thought of my perspective as protecting my family, but now I realize it's limiting us. My grandchildren deserve to grow up in a world where they can appreciate everyone's differences. Just then, a teenage boy approached, holding a small notebook. I overheard your conversation, he said timidly. I'm writing a school report on social issues, and I think what you're discussing is really important. Would you mind if I included this? Linda's heart warmed at his enthusiasm. Of course. If sharing our experiences can help others understand, I'd be honored. Meanwhile, Jason had stepped outside, the warm Nashville sun hitting his face. He leaned against his car, reflecting on the powerful exchange he had just witnessed. The encounter had not only challenged Linda, but had also sparked a movement among the other shoppers. Conversations about acceptance, diversity, and understanding were unfolding in various corners of the store. As he watched people engage with one another, he felt a sense of pride. This was the impact he had hoped for, a ripple effect of awareness and openness that extended beyond just his words. After a few moments, Jason decided to return inside. He wanted to see how the discussions were evolving. As he walked back through the entrance, he was greeted by a chorus of voices, each contributing to the dialogue. Jason approached the group, feeling the positive energy that had filled the store. I'm glad to see everyone talking about this, he said, a smile spreading across his face. Change starts with these conversations. It's how we learn from each other. I never thought about it that way, a young woman said, her brow furrowed in thought. I've always just accepted what I was taught, but maybe it's time to question it. Linda spotted him and waved, a genuine smile lighting up her face. Jason, I was just telling Sarah and this young man how important it is for us to share our experiences and learn from one another. Absolutely, Jason replied, stepping closer. Every story matters. Each one adds to the larger narrative of who we are as a community. Encouraged by their discussion, a middle-aged man chimed in. I think we all have a responsibility to speak out against prejudice when we see it. It's not enough to just think differently. We need to act on those beliefs. Jason nodded, appreciating the sentiment. That's right. It's about standing together and fostering an environment where everyone feels respected and valued. We can create change, but it takes all of us. As the group continued to discuss ways to promote inclusivity in their daily lives, the grocery store transformed from a simple shopping destination into a hub of dialogue. People began exchanging contact information, planning to meet again to discuss community initiatives and ways to foster understanding. Outside in the parking lot, a few people lingered, sharing their own stories of prejudice and resilience. Jason felt a swell of gratitude for the moment they had created together. Before leaving, he turned to the growing crowd and said, If you believe in the power of connection and change, let's keep this conversation alive. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's inspire one another. As he got into his car, he realized that this experience had not only had an impact on Linda, but had also ignited a spark of awareness in many others. The journey toward understanding was ongoing, but moments like this made the path feel a little brighter. This section elaborates on the evolving conversations and connections made among the shoppers, emphasizing the impact of Jason and Linda's encounter on others, while maintaining the narrative's essence. As he browsed, he noticed several posts discussing the incident. People were expressing their support for Jason's message, sharing personal stories of overcoming prejudice, and encouraging each other to engage in conversations about acceptance and understanding. The post that caught his eye was one from a local community group planning to host a workshop on diversity and inclusion. At home, Jason sank into his favorite chair, replaying the day's events in his mind. He felt a wave of gratitude for the opportunity to speak out and share his story. It wasn't just about standing up for himself. It was about standing up for everyone who had ever felt marginalized or unheard. He picked up his phone and began scrolling through social media, eager to see if anyone had shared their thoughts about the encounter. As Jason drove away from the grocery store, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The encounter with Linda had transformed not only her perspective but also sparked a broader dialogue among the shoppers. He couldn't help but smile at the thought of how one conversation could create ripples of change throughout the community. It was a reminder that even in the most mundane moments, powerful connections could be forged. Excited, Jason quickly commented, expressing his interest in participating. He wanted to contribute to the movement that was beginning to take shape, to help others find their voice in the fight against prejudice. It was clear to him that the conversation sparked in the grocery store was only the beginning. Meanwhile, Linda sat at her dining table, reflecting on her own journey. The earlier encounter had shaken her to her core. As she stared at the untouched plate of food in front of her, she felt a mix of emotions: embarrassment, confusion, and a growing sense of determination. Jason's words echoed in her mind, challenging her to reconsider her beliefs and the impact they had on those around her. She picked up her phone and began typing a message to her grandchildren, who often discussed social issues with her. "I want to share something important with you all. Today, I had a conversation that made me realize how much I need to learn. I want to understand more about the world we live in and be better for you." Linda's heart raced as she sent the message, feeling a sense of vulnerability, but also empowerment. She knew that admitting her mistakes was the first step toward growth. She began researching articles and books about diversity and the experiences of marginalized communities, eager to expand her understanding. In the following weeks, the effects of the grocery store encounter continued to ripple through the community. The local group hosted the diversity workshop Jason had seen online, drawing in people from all walks of life. As they gathered, the atmosphere was charged with excitement and anticipation. People shared their stories, listened to one another, and began to forge connections that transcended their differences. Jason attended the workshop, eager to witness the change firsthand. He found himself surrounded by a diverse group of attendees, all of whom were committed to fostering understanding and compassion. Throughout the day, they participated in activities that challenged their perspectives and encouraged them to step outside their comfort zone. As the day came to a close, Jason felt a surge of hope. The conversations that had started in that grocery store had blossomed into something beautiful, an ongoing commitment to understanding, acceptance, and unity. People were leaving with not only new knowledge but also a renewed sense of purpose to create change in their own lives and community. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, who applauded her courage. The workshop facilitator encouraged everyone to reflect on their biases and to embrace the opportunity for growth. They discussed the importance of empathy in bridging divides and the power of vulnerability in fostering connections. Linda was there too, sitting among the participants with a sense of purpose. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, determined to engage in meaningful discussions. When it was her turn to share, she stood up, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I used to think that my way of seeing the world was the only way. But today, I realize that we all have different experiences that shape who we are. I want to listen and learn from each of you." Linda smiled back, her heart full. "Thank you for challenging me. I see now that it's not just about changing my perspective. It's about being part of a larger movement toward understanding." As they exchanged contact information, they both knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. The conversations they started would continue to evolve, and together they would work to build a more inclusive community. Before departing, Jason turned to Linda, who was surrounded by new friends and fellow learners. "I'm proud of you for stepping out of your comfort zone," he said warmly. "You're making a difference." That evening, as Jason reflected on the day, he felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. The small actions they had taken, speaking up, listening, and learning, had the power to create lasting change. He realized that each of them had a role to play, and he was committed to continuing the conversation, both online and in person. It was moments like these that reminded him of the importance of connection and the transformative power of dialogue. He closed his eyes, envisioning a future where understanding and acceptance thrived, and he felt grateful to be part of it. This section emphasizes the ongoing impact of the grocery store encounter, illustrating how both Jason and Linda, along with their community, continue to grow and engage in meaningful conversations about acceptance and understanding. One evening, Jason received an invitation from Linda to attend a community potluck that she was organizing. The event aimed to bring together individuals from different backgrounds to share food, stories, and cultural tradition. Excited by the idea of furthering the conversation in a more casual setting, Jason eagerly accepted. As the weeks passed, the community's commitment to fostering understanding and inclusivity continued to grow. The workshop Jason had attended became a regular event, attracting more participants each time. It created a safe space for discussions about diversity, personal stories, and the challenges that many faced in their daily lives. The conversation sparked a sense of solidarity among attendees, who began to form lasting connection. On the day of the potluck, the community center buzzed with energy. Tables were adorned with colorful tablecloths, and the aroma of various dishes wafted through the air. People mingled, sharing laughter and exchanging stories as they prepared for the evening's festivities. Jason arrived early, helping Linda set up the space. "Thank you for coming, Jason," Linda said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I wanted this set to be a way for everyone to connect beyond our differences. Food has a way of bringing people together." As guests began arriving, the atmosphere grew even warmer. People brought dishes representing their cultural heritage: spicy jambalaya, fragrant biryani, savory tacos, and sweet baklava, among others. The table overflowed with an array of flavors, each dish telling a story of its origin. Once everyone had gathered, Linda welcomed everyone with a smile. "I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces and new ones here tonight. We're here to celebrate our diversity and to learn from one another. Let's share not just our food, but also our story." After a round of applause, guests began to serve themselves, filling their plates with a little bit of everything. Jason chatted with a few attendees, discussing their experiences and the impact the workshops had on their lives. He felt a sense of belonging among the group, a feeling that had grown since that fateful day at the grocery store. As people settled down to eat, Lyndon encouraged everyone to share a story related to their dish. "Tell us about your favorite memory associated with this food," she prompted, her voice warm and inviting. A woman named Maria, who had brought enchiladas, stood up and shared her family's tradition of cooking together every Sunday. "It's a time for us to bond and share our lives," she explained. "No matter what happens throughout the week, we come together, and it brings us closer. That's what food means to me." The crowd listened intently, nodding along as Maria spoke. When she finished, the next guest, a young man named Amir, shared his own story about his mother's biryani. "She would always say that cooking was an act of love," he said, his eyes gleaming with nostalgia. "Every time I make this dish, I feel connected to her, no matter how far away I am." As more people shared their stories, a palpable sense of unity emerged. Jason marveled at how the simple act of sharing food had opened doors to deeper conversations about culture, identity, and belonging. After everyone had a chance to share, Linda encouraged a little activity. Let's take a moment to iterate the different cultures represented here. Can we each share one thing we've learned or appreciated about another person's story tonight? As the evening wore on, laughter and chatter filled the air. Jason felt a sense of pride watching everyone come together, their differences melting away in the warmth of connection. It was a beautiful reminder of the power of community and the importance of fostering understanding. The room buzzed with excitement as people took turns expressing their appreciation. One woman spoke about how she had never tried Ethiopian food until recently, and how it had changed her perspective on different culinary traditions. Another guest shared how he had learned to embrace the diversity in his neighborhood through interactions with his neighbors. As the potluck drew to a close, Linda stood up once more, her heart full. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's incredible to see so many people willing to engage in these conversations and celebrate our differences. Let's carry this spirit of connection forward and continue to learn from one another. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jason couldn't help but join in, feeling grateful for the journey that had brought them all together. This event was a testament to the changes that could happen when people chose to open their hearts and minds. Before leaving, Jason approached Linda, giving her a warm hug. You've done an amazing job tonight. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Linda smiled, her eyes shining. Yes, it is. Together, we can create a community that embraces everyone and fosters understanding. Thank you for being part of this journey. As Jason walked to his car, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The seeds of change had been planted, and now it was time for them to grow. He knew that every conversation, every shared meal, and every moment of connection would contribute to a brighter, more inclusive future. With a smile on his face, he drove home, excited for what lay ahead, ready to continue the work of building bridges and inspiring others to do the same. This section highlights the community potluck organized by Linda, illustrating the power of food and storytelling in fostering connection and understanding among diverse individuals. It emphasizes the ongoing journey of growth for both Jason and Linda as they work toward creating a more inclusive community.